This is a sponsored event. We will be playing sponsored ads. However, I will state this as we always do. I will play them responsibly, and we will not bombard you with them. So you will only see ads primarily when there's downtime, and we won't be sticking them in between every single game. But good morning, one and all, and welcome to the TING European Group number 1. Spawning here in the bottom right corner of the map, playing for Invasion Gaming. Oh, yeah, they're both on Invasion Gaming, actually. It's the Purple Zerg Lambo.
And in the top right, as the pink Protoss, he's Harstem.
Alright, so Ting, just a quick shout out to them, sponsoring this tournament, $5,000. They are willing to do another one in the future if we can get the sign-up rate high enough. The number, of course, our goal that they set for us was 40. If over the course of these 2 months we can get 40 people signed up for Ting. And it's worth noting, guys, we're not at the halfway point, but we're over the halfway mark in our goal. At 24 people signed up for Ting now.
Woohoo!
Yay! So, Ting is a U.S. mobile phone service available, sadly, only in the United States. Oh, Lambo may or may not love taking this base. We'll find out in a moment. But they're a U.S. mobile phone service in the United States, and we'll tell you more about them as the day goes on. And hopefully you guys will learn that they're good business, is what they are. They're not just money grabbing, trying to make some quick bucks. Because
very nice.
The most respectable thing is they will tell you if their phone service is no good for you, they would rather you just stay with what you got, and that's pretty cool. But a new subscriber to kick off the day is a good way to kick off this cast. Praetor Meyer, thank you very much for subscribing to the channel. That's going to make you, if you want to take a number, sir, 1,077. What?
Amazing.
Okay, so Lambo, like I said, perhaps lesser known in the series of between the two of them, but should not be underestimated. I would personally put my Partoos on this guy.
Yeah, he's been definitely a very good Zerg. In this matchup, there's been a lot of good Zerg all-ins that you can kind of abuse. So he's got a little bit going for him, especially on Lairlac Crest. And the reason that he took this forward base might be because he's looking for one of those all-ins. Now, he didn't actually know where Harstem was, but if you're going to play like a safe, passive, defensive, macro style, the only reason you wouldn't take the pocket base behind the rocks would be if, you know, they were the horizontal spawns. And even then, you know, like, all Zergs do it all the time, so it's just usually the safer base. But this new, no, that's not new actually, this really good all-in that Zergs are doing commonly on this map, especially if it's not diagonal spawns, does involve bringing queens. So if you have a forward reinforcement point, such as the third going towards your opponent, then it might be better for this specific all-in. Okay, Harstem's lagging.
We're on Central Europe, and I, for one, am actually not lagging for once. Whoa, wait, I'm getting 120 FPS? What the fuck? That's cool. That's twice as much as we're broadcasting with. Awkward. Well, hopefully Harstem's not going to be lagging too much.
There you go.
Because you're right, like, if this is going to be Roach Ravager all-in hitting with queens, it's going to be really hard to hold off if you're sitting there eating even a single corrosive bile.
Yeah, it's a very difficult hold, and it even, what's disappointing sometimes for the Protoss player, and I guess if you're cheering for the Protoss guy, is that it seems like even if you had the world's most perfect micro, the severe difference in just army is too big.
Queen's already getting started. Where are they going?
Yeah, I was like, they're getting a little too forward. Like, Corsair Gear isn't even done.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to move out eventually, but not this early. Okay, they're still going to move out. Thank you, by the way, to D1100, or D1100. Another new subscriber kicking off the gas. Damn.
What is happening?
I don't know.
I'm not complaining.
I'm not complaining either, but it's weird, right? Like, we've suddenly just hit this threshold of, like, people want to sub, and it's awesome. It's fucking amazing.
Thank you.
It's Harstem does have a Phoenix opener here, so the kind of awkward part about this, and I actually really like the second wall he's putting down right now, recognizing what's coming. The Phoenixes can certainly crowd control a little bit, but this isn't that Ravager attack. This is like just queens and roaches as fast as possible.
This is really weird. So, I mean, Ling Roach
Queen's got range over Adepts.
Yeah, they can stop the Phoenixes. I mean, The Ravagers, they'll tear down things a little bit quicker, and they'll reach over force fields as well. So Harstem, recognizing that if it was just pure Roach, could maybe, if he could get more force fields, but of course he's running a little low on gas. Scoops up whatever can hit the Phoenixes first.
Everything's depowered. All his production's gone.
Use.
He's gonna have this one immortal, which will be nice. But this is like all of his production's been depowered through this attack so far. Like Lambo hitting this hard. Lambo coming in strong, and I'm not saying it's game over yet, but it is double the supply in the favor of the Zerg player.
This Immortal is doing a lot of work. You know, if a Void Ray was out too, I think that would have really helped, especially with the Queens being picked up by the Phoenixes.
They're trying to kill that mothership core.
It's such a slow push. There's no snowball effect because the Lings aren't here yet, but the Lings are coming, so soon you'll see Lings every which, base and everything being destroyed while you're trying to micro against these Roaches.
I love the cannons. I think the cannons are a fantastic addition to this, and they've helped out quite a bit. Even if it's just soaking hits, worthwhile. Because that was the time necessary to get those pylons up, to get the cannons up. 2 Immortals out might just hold this, question mark? Like,
looks like it.
This is starting to look so much better for Harstem than it did 2 seconds ago.
The main problem was that the competition was so slow. Like, it had no Lings backing it up, and Lings are really what they start to grab the Immortals, so you can't micro them back. They get around the Immortals too, so they're not being the effective anti-Roach unit that they are. They're hitting, useless Lings, and that was actually, like, a situation where Harstem could focus fire. Now the Lings come in, though, and you can see just with the Lings, suddenly the skyrocket of the probes killed.
Yeah. What's really interesting to me behind this, though, is normally an all-in failing is the end of the game for the player trying to execute it. Lambo actually has killed, like, 20 probes or so behind this. He's forced out a lot of extra cannons, pylons built. Like, I actually think he could potentially macro this, and I think that's why he sneaks in some drones here. Problem is, Harstem is going to have a pretty nice counterattack if he chooses to push. But he also might be scared. He might just sit here on these 3 Immortals, try and turtle up behind these walls.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the problems is that he's only on 4 gateways, which isn't a lot for, like, getting that fodder for your Immortals. But this really isn't a game about a lot of units. It's about effective units. And those 3 Immortals are very effective against the Roaches. Now Lambo's starting to morph in more Ravagers, something else that was missing from that attack. You bust down the cannons from a range, you can catch the Immortals if they're stuck in a position, and of course they don't actually take any extra damage from the Immortal, but it looks like Lambo's just going to go for a secondary all-in, try and fix whatever didn't work last time.
The lack of Ravagers was in the favor of timing, though, and it's not often, but that timing was so sweet. Queens in the front line are actually going to be so good at soaking the Immortal hits because they don't take any extra damage. Actually, nothing really takes extra damage from the Immortals, but the point of it still is that Ravagers don't have a lot of health. Queens have way more health than a Ravager does, so you want it soaking all the damage. Corsair Gear's trying to land. Honestly, though, as silly as this sounds, I think Lynx and Queens would beat this army because it is out of position. The Overcharge getting some nice shots off, and Lambo fighting in range if it's not helping, but he does kill the pylon, opening the gates, opening the doors, and killing the defense.
Yeah, that Warp Prism really helping out, bringing the Immortals back, letting them micro as well. I mean, the biggest mistake Harstem did was push out without scouting what Lambo was doing. If he was droning, then that's an awesome push out, and you're trying to catch the the third base being as forward as it is. If they're making an army, then maybe that's a little more questionable, especially if Lings had flooded in and surrounded them, which well, they're on the rocks now.
Well, as you brought out, well, who else is on the rocks? Hearthstone. I like this Warp Prism trying to get around to do damage, but it's not about killing drones at this point. Like, Lambo has a pretty sizable army. In fact, Lings responded to this very quickly. Yeah.
It is about getting those Lings off of his back, and now Harstem, who has been the defender this entire time, has a pretty difficult decision in the macro game as to where to take his third base. Usually Protoss like taking, more aggressive third bases as their army gets to that kind of like, not death ball like Heart of the Swarm, but kind of gets to that point. And they'll want to respond, but Lambo's been the one in control with the better army for a long time.
I wonder if Harstem's even considering a third right now. Okay, looks like he is. Because I was going to say, so much of this game hinges on him being set behind by these attacks. And while it's easy for us to look at this from the observer point of view, let's not forget, like, it is pretty difficult for a player like Harstem in his position to consider where exactly he's at in this game. He's had not a lot of information. He doesn't know whether Lambo cut a bunch of drones to make this happen, whether he droned crazy hard behind it. When it comes to openers and builds, players know each other inside and out, but the result of these attacks is always left in the air with question marks.
He does take the third to the left of his natural, which I think, considering the situation, makes the most sense, especially since he's already he's already walled this part off. Defending that third, if he had taken this one, would have been even more difficult. Like, he wouldn't be able to actually get past his own wall unless he tore it down. And the gateways are very important right now because he still has no idea when he's going to be under pressure.
Holy cow, that corpse been flying. I love the creep being put back down though. I actually think that's a pretty important detail, especially with queens being in play.
Yeah. Gonna bother getting those resonating glaives, as a lot of his fodder is in those adepts, so it makes sense.
This is actually a very interesting attack timing because he is gonna have +1 in roach speed now, which is nice. So Harstem's not gonna have an upgrade advantage, but unit type plus force fields can go a long way. This many adepts should not have problem dealing with the links with or without the resonating glaives. It really comes down to these ravagers and the corrosive biles versus the immortals. Now, force field wall going to go down. It's going to trap some of these units, but honestly, this third base, perhaps not the highest priority target. Lambo could crush this army if he could connect his whole army to it, but instead of corrosive biling the force fields and breaking this, he's walking against the wall.
Looks like he's still going to have an overwhelming army, just with the concave, with the queens providing chance fuses. The immortals are starting to go down. I don't know, like, how Harstem was actually going to take a better fight, to be honest, because there was always... Lambo had two choices, and Harstem didn't have a big enough army to respond to the two choices, which is go through the natural or actually attack him with the third base. So that was a difficult game for all Protoss.
Yeah, it was a gross, disgusting, great all-in, I guess you could say. What's the second map going to be? Dusk. Okay, I'm going to go load up that map intro. I think I've found the method to do this. It's really difficult. Like, just so you guys are aware, between trying to run our own map intros and having all the ads and everything set up for TING and all these different screens, my XSplit is actually so full. What I'm doing is I'm layering video on top of video and then just making it hidden. So I'm going to the preview editor to unhide the video so we can play it in the scene. It's a lot more complicated than it sounds, but the TLDR is I am out of space and I wish I had more scenes on XSplit. But that's a great start to the series for Lambo. 1-0 coming off strong. Lirlacrest, a very good map. But this was all vetoes and set out beforehand, so everybody knows exactly what maps are going to be played.
They vetoed Orbital and Prion.
I can understand Prion. The Orbital one I found a little bit surprising, though.
Yeah. The, I don't know, Prion is, I think it was Harstem's veto. No.
Lambo just went offline. Okay, so just gonna relog really quick, I guess. This is one of those times where, like, I guess we're gonna play an ad, guys, because we don't know what's going on. Lambo just typed no, a bunch of gibberish, and then went offline. So we're not gonna be gone long. I'll keep it very short, but we will be back in a moment, I guess. What the fuck? Guess. All right, folks, we're back. Game number 2 in the first best of 5 today. And again, every match is going to be a best of 5, not a best of 3. My game sounds are a bit low. I'm going to try picking these up a bit. Just one sec. Let's have this from last time, too. Hope that's a bit better now. So I want to explain the whole Take TV situation because it is being discussed in chat. I want to make sure there's no misunderstandings, etc. But we'll do the intros first. So spawning here in the bottom left side of Dust Towers, we've got the pink Protoss Harstem.
In the top right, as the purple Zerg, he's the Lambo.
So everyone is aware, we have a good personal relationship with Naruto from Take TV. He's one of their main casters, and we're friends with Dennis as well. Really nice guy, and that's where our personal relationship extends. I don't really know me very well, and he didn't contact us about casting today, so we didn't have time to ask the sponsors to ask if it would be okay if the German cast even covered it. We're not trying to start drama or anything. It's just plain and simple miscommunication, and we are already set to go with the day. So we love Take TV. I want to make sure everyone's fully aware of this, okay? Like, they are our caster brothers from another mother type thing. It's just unfortunate that today we can't have them on. So, dear German viewers, I hope your English is good enough to enjoy the cast here. But, okay, so for that first game, like, okay, Lambo got away with a little bit cheesy. Like, maybe that was luck of the draw with his spawn locations, the way he took the third on the map. Maybe that was his pre-planned, like, idea from the start. I don't know. I do know, though, that Harstem's a hard guy to trick twice. And even when he does get cut off by cheese, rarely do we see him get cut off by cheese, the same cheese again. So Lambo takes a third base pretty quick. Maybe decides to walk queens across the map slow as hell, or maybe he macros it up. We'll find out. But I know in my heart, all right, my heart tells me Harstem wouldn't lose to that again.
Well, what's unfortunate is that, yeah, you won't lose the same Roach Ravager attack that is just, you know, entirely not map dependent twice in a row. The problem is that there are so many very specific attacks that are dependent per map. So Harstem, he anticipated the attack. It was literally that crest after all, and saw what was happening. He probably had a good idea that was, you know, very high possibility. He dies to it. Dust Towers, there's not much in the same way, so he'll probably have a decent chance on this map. But Arena, I believe, is in the map pool as well, so then he'll have to worry about the Queen Drop Roach or Ling attack. And that is different, it's expected, and yet it's still difficult to actually hold up against. So that's like one of the main problems for Protoss, at least right now, I think, is that the maps are also not exactly their favorite.
Yeah. Well, so this map, actually, speaking of maps, we've seen a lot of longer games going down on this map recently, and specifically Protoss versus Zerg has gone very much in the favor of the Protoss, who take that slower, stallier game, I guess. So a bit of pressure is on Lambo to make sure it doesn't get crazier out of hand. But got some good news for everybody. Jesse is apparently on his way back from lunch as we speak, and he's planning to spend his afternoon in Twitch chat. So if you guys have any questions about Ting, he'll be hanging out. He'll be taking your questions, your answers, and I don't know. You can ask him about playing some StarCraft. I don't know if he's taking games today or not, but I do know that they recorded a lot of games from that last session, and they want to record some more before they make the final video. So I don't know when that's happening, but when you see him pop in the chat, I recommend asking.
Well, it is Dust Towers, so we do have some time to talk about things such as how Jesse did versus all of his opponents and whatnot.
1 and 3, not good.
It's gonna be a long time until something actually happens. We have no Ling, not all in, but like flood of Lings trying to deny the third base. We don't have any drops. Like the first Evo Chamber comes down now, so maybe a drop for the future, but I think it's just an upgrade from Evo Chamber. And just gotta wait till like 7 or 8 minutes. So Jesse needs to be taught some Protoss.
Yeah, well, I mean, he'll have he's subscribed to the channel, so he'll have access to Harstem's replays at some point down the line. Although I do wonder,
do better.
So I know they're doing some proposed balance changes, and they're not going to change anything before IEM Katowice, but this tournament doesn't finish until a couple weeks after IEM Katowice, and I'm wondering if we're going to have a round of 8 that has a different balance patch than everything that's been leading into it type thing. Specifically, of course, referring to Terran for the potential tank changes and all these other such things that they're testing.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there is no time where there's no tournaments happening. They're gonna screw someone over, but if that tank drop goes through, or the lack of tank drops go through, it's gonna take a long time before Terran's used to defending mostly Zerg, I would say, but also getting used to TVT as it was in the old days, and somewhat TVP because tank drops have been used there too.
Well, we're scooping up a couple of the drones, not doing super craziness, but with the spore crawlers and these queens, Lambo should keep Harstem from getting away with too much. Kind of cool for him to go for that faster fourth, bit of an old response, because you'd see Phoenix and be like, well, you can't lift up buildings, bro, come at me.
Yeah. It's the
Harstem with a double robo, and the really, of course, I think common thing we're seeing is lots and lots of immortals. I am truly curious. The Immortal's obviously a huge necessity for things like Lurkers. We've seen this time in and time out. Lots of Lurkers and Roaches and you name it, Immortals do well. But they're becoming better and better versus non-Lurker units. Huge damage-dealing units. And that barrier ability is improving its strength in every and any Hydralisk fight. I'm wondering if at some point Blizzard's going to look at that and wonder... Because right now, I really don't feel like it's imbalanced, but is this the direction of the game they wanted to take?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, we got another new sub. DDA Didalglish. I hope I'm saying that correctly. Thank you so much for subscribing.
Thanks for subbing.
But anyways, going back to the topic of Immortal, like they introduced this really cool unit called the Disruptor. It doesn't really get used the same way it used to, and it had a pretty important role in the matchup, but now it's kind of questionable when we see it. And the Colossus obviously nerfed quite a bit, so the Immortal becoming the focal point is kind of the same way Stalkers ended up becoming the focal point in HOTS, right? Where it's just all mass bullying Stalkers +3 all the time, always. And I think a big part of the way they tried to change for Legacy of the Void was they wanted to get away from that style, right? And now we've unfortunately had that style transition elsewhere. So I'm not saying this is bad, and it's not broken. And Protoss, if anything, could maybe use a little bit of love in some categories of the game. But I am wondering if this is the direction they want it to head.
I'm not sure they wanted to get rid of Blink Stalker style entirely. It could be a fun style, but you just saw it like every single game, so it got boring. And the same thing is happening with Immortals. But, you know, Showtime yesterday afternoon, because that's when we cast, he was switching between the Mass Immortal Charge Lot, you know, Archon style, into Blink Stalker, Disruptor Archon. That's what I was looking for. So there are two different ways to play. I think that's, of course, the Disruptor's always going to have that problem, though, as being a one-hit wonder. But they do deal better with, you know, if they actually get the shots, then they're going to do better with taking out a group of Hydras, for instance, which is something that Immortals aren't very good at. That's where hopefully the Storm for Harstem in this game is going to come in, actually getting on top of those Hydralisks so you can actually get to the Lurkers beyond that.
There's only got the one one observer for detection right now. A little bit worrisome as that could get picked off. An Oracle would be great in this situation, but not going towards Stargate. Doesn't really have that ready and available. And Lambo just bullying with a bit of range, trying to bait out some hits. Storm goes down, not too bad. Meanwhile, the Warp Prism heading out does have Zealots, not Adepts, so this is actually quite a bit of killing potential. But man, those Lurkers are going to start creeping forward little bit by little bit. Mothership Core, what? Ah! It's like it almost went down, then lived, and decided, nope, I want to die. So that sucks for Harstem. This Immortal count, though, is going to spread and looks like to try and take the fight down the ramp, but the Lurkers dealing a lot of damage coming forward. 2 Observers out, a couple of Storms. Hopefully doesn't storm his own Observers, but does deal with the initial Hydras. And with the Hydras going down, the Lurkers are a lot more manageable. Barrier is on cooldown, and he's going to have to back away till it comes off of cooldown to take that second part of the fight.
Very smart of him to back off when he did, because there were just a couple of Lurker shots away from completely dying. Replacing those Immortals takes a very long time as opposed to just waiting for their barrier. So the Warp Prism actually just leaves after dealing, you know, an okay amount of damage, bringing some of the reinforcements back for sure. So without the reinforcements, the Lurkers also had to go home. Yeah,
that was actually the more key point to this, I feel, because Harstem was just buying time for that barrier to come off cooldown. The second it did, he was going to push through and kill everything. Now he goes to take his 4th, but you know, look at the income graph in this game. Up until this harass with these Zealots, it was Lambo's game. He had that 4th base. He had a lot of drones going for him. Now it's time for Harstem to play catch up. And he did. I mean, we look at the resources lost. Like, he did take a better fight. There's no question about it. I guess the deadly scary thing though is no matter what kind of fight Harstem takes, no matter what kind of trades he makes, at the end of the day, it's going to be harder for him to replace these units like Immortals than it is for Lambo to just make 17 more Hydras and then Morphall 17 of those in the Lurkers. So as long as Harstem doesn't give away too many of the expensive units, and it's the gateway units that get given away through these engagements, he's fine. The Immortals and their barrier are constantly coming off a cooldown. Makes them so good for every follow-up engagement.
Yeah. Lurkers are going to do fine defensively for a while, but Lambo does need to advance his tech now that, well, he didn't break Harstem. Harstem's army is actually going to be getting better unless he can get to that hive.
Oh, that's another warp in. Unfortunately driven off before too much comes out of that. I'm surprised he didn't just unload the Zealots and go, oh, it's not Zealots, that's why it's Templar. Oh my.
Yeah, I want to be a little more careful with those.
I was like, why didn't he just unload the Zealots inside the Warp Prism? 4 High Templar, though. That's going to be some nice storms if you can catch them on those mineral lines. Easier said than done, of course, with the Warp Prism being so low.
So the ground army of Harstem is really, really scary, especially with the high energy High Templar. He could take a fight if he chose to, like a try anyways. But he's already advancing his tech to that above and beyond Lambo. So Lambo, as I said, was going to need to go to Hive for like Vipers and maybe Broodlords, but then Harstem's reaction would have been the Tempest. But Harstem just goes there anyways. He also takes the fights, and like, it's pretty good. Most of the Immortals still alive, through the barriers down.
I don't know if you can keep pushing though. This line of attack for the Lurkers is really good, and Harstem is starting to give away way too much, and in an instant goes from a decent engagement to a horrific engagement. Meanwhile, Lurkers get positioned down here and chunk away about 8% probes, denying some of that very important mining that goes towards replacing this army.
Oh my
He's just
god.
gonna tap out. I don't blame him. He was gonna be fighting a hard battle from the rest of the game.
That's so unfortunate. He had a great army. He took a great fight for the first half, and he had just backed off like he did the last fight. He would have been able to clean up the 2 Lurkers attacking his 4th, first of all, and then gone into Tempest Tech.
It's just unfortunate for him that he took such a bad fight.
The last 50% of that fight, man.
Yeah. Well, next map's gonna be what, Ruins? So load up the intro.
You know what? Keep losing the map order. Yep, Ruins Arena Detox.
Cool. Nailed it. Of course, after this, guys, we're going to have Bly versus you Thermal, but well, we're not going to an ad break, just showing you the bracket screen really quick. This is what today's going to look like. So, loser of this will fight the loser of Bly versus you Thermal. We do losers matches before winners in our tournaments. So, I know it's been a while since we've had a proper group stage tournament. We spent a long time recovering from Hell's Boot time financially. But it's nice to be able to get back into the swing of things. Sneeze one sec.
Bless you.
Thank you. Gesundheit. Right? Is that the Germans would say?
Sure.
Okay, well, we're ready whenever they are. I got that map intro loaded up and good to go, and we will hop into game number 3. It is a 2-0 lead currently for Lambo. And we'll see if he can lock it down here if Harstem comes back fighting. We'll see you guys in a sec. We'll see you guys in a sec. We'll see you guys in... Alright, folks, game number 3 here as I set up the overlay. And, of course, if anyone's unfamiliar with our UI, down here is always going to display the best of and the score at the same time. Swap those names around. Spawning here on the top left side of Ruins of Ceres, we've got the pink Protoss player, Envision Gaming's Harstem.
In the top right, as the purple Zerg, he is Lambo.
Alright, so just a quick reminder, this tournament is, of course, brought to you guys by TING. We're going to play some ads after this series is done on their behalf, but the cool thing about TING that I rather enjoy, and this isn't even like shouting anything out in particular, it's just they've been really nice to work with, like every step of the way, through every bit of the qualifiers, through any questions that the viewers have had. And I remind you all that this is not even their first big step into StarCraft 2. You know, they sponsored StarCraft America last year, as well as a giant 2v2 tournament hosted by Nathanius. And I'm really, really glad that they were willing to work with us here for this one.
Yep.
Let's not forget potentially more in the future, which excited and awesome if that ends up happening.
That is the hope. So, I talked briefly about all the all-ins and cheese that can happen in the last map, and the Dusk Towers doesn't really have one. You usually get to that later stage that Harstem did get to and then just fumbled at the end. Ruins doesn't really have necessarily well, I guess you could, no, it's still called a cheese, actually, never mind. But it has the Overlord drops, of course, in the main base, and then the Flood of Lings to the natural, so it can be really good for those Ling all-ins, or cheese, or whatever you want to call it.
The Overlord drops have actually become really problematic from what we've seen. There's some players who just don't even care. You got players like Huck who put their first pylon in their mineral line, and it's a non-issue, but it's usually less about that one Overlord, but you're right, like, you drop in the main, distracting the natural, hit them both at the same time, and it's hard to respond because Protoss don't have a lot of production early on. Yeah, it's really hard to cover this, big of a base as well, so even if they did have, a couple of units, they would have to be split apart, which Protoss doesn't do well with, and otherwise, they're all pretty slow, obviously slower than Speedlings. Lambo, sorry, once again takes a forward base. This also could be in response to just like you don't want to be Blink Stalker abused, but Harstem doesn't look like he's going for Blink Stalkers, so it's not going to play a part in this game. But just like it was on Lairlac, it can also just be a forward reinforcing point. You defend and you can attack with this type of base. Actually, it's a good point you bring up because I always forget about that every time we come to this map. It is just that danger that this pocket base gets you killed, less about whether this ends up being aggressive or not. But it's the fact that Lambo did show that aggression on Lairlac, the fact that these spawn locations luck out to be what they are, that makes me a little bit worried for Harstem. Not incredibly so, but a little bit worried, because he does scout this without adepts, of course.
Yeah. We've been seeing a lot of contention over bases like this, if it's not a Blink Stalker all in anyways. a lot of games that would go to Adept with Resonating Glaive kind of all in for a very extended amount of time, and then maybe you'd get a third afterwards. And it's been hard for the Zerg to hold off on something as powerful as that with such quick reinforcements coming from, Harstem's base. But he's not going for that either. Like, and completely just no Toilet Council tech yet. So, every option that I'm talking about is actually not on Harstem's mind here for now. He's just going for that Robo, and I guess just try and hold basically against whatever Lambo has to throw against him, which now Lambo is out. He's obviously not going for the Speedling all in. That would have already happened, but he could go for still a very powerful Roach Ravager push, especially if he sees that Harstem's intention is to take a third base.
I swear, every time Goblins ruined me for every cast after that. For those who didn't see the wild card qualifier, we had this Protoss from Europe named Goblin who tried to go just mass oracles, and as it turns out, that didn't win him the game, but it can do a very significant amount of damage to things like roaches and ravagers and you name it. Like a surprising, you're like, wait, why does this work amount of damage?
Yes. That's always been the Oracle, though. Oh, it can kill that Cyclone. Oh, it can kill that Sentry. Oh, it can kill anything it really puts its mind to. Okay, great.
Also, let's not forget, it can crowd troll like no other with that stasis.
Oh my god. You would have... You should watch one game in particular from Pro League last night. You love stasis wards. I think they're cool, but we rarely see them utilized consistently, I guess is the best word. At least not since they first appeared and everyone was experimenting with them. But last night's Pro League had a situation where they kept on walking into 6 or 7 stasis traps.
That would be so tilt inducing without question.
It was actually really good use of the traps, but it was SOS versus Zest, so it's a really cool PvP. But anyway,
I know
I
at
don't
least
think
one person on Twitter who probably really enjoyed that.
Right?
Okay, so Lambo is starting to move out, but this is hardly that same giant all in. It's more just getting a little bit of map pressure and looking around. I like the stasis trap out of Harstem. He's also got enough juice that he can do a bit of damage. It's really, really bad though when you see the Zerg player picks up on these, right? You don't actually need detection to kill the stasis wards. You can just walk one Zergling into it, trigger it, and then go in afterwards.
Yeah, that's was of course the change they made early on before stasis. Well, not even before they were abused. They're not abused still. Before they were fully fleshed out, I guess they changed it so you don't you can't automatic or manually detonate the stasis trap, or whatever you want to call it. I really wonder if it would be better if they put it back. Oh well. This push is very odd because it's such a small amount of units for a Protoss player. Usually something like this would be accompanied by a Mothership Core in case, the Zerg was actually prepping for their own attack and you just ran into a bunch of units. But for Harstem, there wasn't a lot to greet him. Lambo was just making all of his Hydras, 15 were on the way out. So he gets a third base and then gets out of there. No recall necessary.
Good start. It's kind of a freebie. Hopefully he doesn't sense too much. If he's okay, you know what, that was too easy, let's keep going, but then he falls into the trap of Lambo with a big concave, that can be dangerous. But right now the army supply is looking pretty good for Harstem. Puts down that Revelation, keep an eye on what's going on, warping in new units as we speak, and behind this looks like he is moving to what is possibly Disruptors. Now those Crystal Battle hits were nice, he took out a couple of the sentries, but this is drone pulling time from Lambo. He's really worried about this attack. Oh, not drone pulling, they're just long distance mining. Excuse me. Got excited about that. Oh, there we go. Now it's drone pulling. Just a little bit later.
All of his roaches ended up dying pretty quickly to those Immortals, and without that, the Ravagers and Hydras go down quickly no matter what's attacking them. So that is what's happening here. Lambo is losing out on army. The reinforcements from the Warp Prism, very, very effective. He already lost one base. He's going to lose his backup third, shall we call it, his fourth. Or the drone's on at the very least. The Oracle comes in.
The Oracle's just like, what's up? How you doing?
Is Harstem gonna retreat? He has such momentum.
Yeah, I feel though this is actually almost entirely because of what happened last game. If this was map 2 instead of map 3, I think he would have pushed the issue. Now, it's not that there was a bunch of lurkers waiting for him, but it's more that he's getting Disruptors behind this, and he can secure a better lead with those than what is possibly get trapped in, possibly get surrounded and killed, right? So I mean, I don't take this as a bad move out of Harstem, even though I definitely think he could have done more damage there for sure.
I think he could have pushed in to win, but he might still be able to. So, like, it's only a mistake if they end up losing the game. Lambo's desperately trying to get whatever units he can out, but he also lost a chunk of those drones. 21 workers were killed for Lambo. Yeah, Siege Trap was pretty cool, and the Adepts are now, of course, waiting here. A bunch of pylons as well. They're not going to get anything done. They're just going to try and escape.
Yeah, this is hardly threatening. He's just going to leave the Adepts there because he's focusing on the other side of the map where we got those Disruptors coming in. Hydrolus Corpse does a backflip! That was cool to see. So many Adepts, of course, can be so good against light units, but in general, you want to get away from those Lings if possible. So the force fields to separate the armies, not a bad idea. Disruptors coming off cooldown soon, and they can just hop up and, yep, hide inside that Warp Prism.
Mm-hmm. Harstem is looking like he's going to put a point on the board for himself. The next map will be Arena, though, so it's still an uphill climb to actually take this best of 5. There he goes into the third base. Lambo has a nice concave, but those force fields have been very effective so far.
The Disruptor hits, they're not so hot.
Yeah, the Disruptors weren't that hot, and he took a bunch of Corruptor, Corrosive Bile shots. Did he just throw his army away?
But he kills 2 bases, so it's almost like... Don't tap out Harstem, please, like last game, because I think he's got a good chance. He's taking a fourth while this goes on. He is going to need a pretty good defense, but with this many pylons and a lot of photon overcharges readily available, I think he'll be okay. Like, you're right, he did throw the army away, and that sucks, and I don't think it was worth it. But it is a situation where I don't think Harstem's out of the game because of it.
Yeah, he definitely shouldn't tap out. Legacy of the Void armies are quicker to make than Heart of the Swarm, although still not obviously that quick for Protoss. So as long as he can buy some time, hopefully he can get something of an army back up, at least to scare Lambo from taking away his own 3rd and 4th base. Because Lambo's kind of going all in here, you know? He's putting all of his money into reinforcements, Ravagers, more Lings to get across the map. He's not trying to take back his 3rd.
I mean, Harstem,
get?
right? He's spending his money, and I like that because there's no point in dying with 2.4k in the bank or something like that, right? But whether what he's making is going to be good is the question mark, because of course it's a lot of Hydras in this. The Void Ray will do some work. We'll see if it's enough. The overcharges are buying time, but it's proven to not be a lot. That Disruptor gets a wonderful hit, but it is only 1 hit, and that Disruptor is now on cooldown, backing up to the top of this ramp. There's nowhere to really hide. New Disruptor shot comes up. This army's clumped. Oh, Lambo takes a huge hit right in the center of his army, and this starts looking really bad for him. Push back, GG.
Okay.
Harstem not gonna go down in this series. We'll fight back now 2-1.
Oh dear.
All right, so now we are gonna take a small break. We're gonna let the players know. We're gonna play a couple of actually sponsored ads from TING. We'll play the new ones actually. I haven't seen them yet. We're gonna play the sponsored break. This is of course from our wonderful people making this tournament happen, TING. The quick TLDR before we get into it. We got new information they want us to drop on you guys today, and we absolutely will. But the TLDR on what TING is a U.S. I can't speak today. Ugh. It's a U.S. mobile phone service, and they're looking to save you money each month, if at all possible. So these are apparently their Facebook tips and tricks, or just tips and tricks. I'm not sure. The file's labeled Facebook, so I'm assuming it came from Facebook. But we are going to go to that break. We'll see you guys here in a few minutes with more of the TING Cup when we return. TING open. Damn it.